What's up, everybody? Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. Happy Packers game day. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Going to try to keep this one a little bit short today because I know it's Christmas. I know it's a noon game, so probably not a ton of time to listen to this prior to kickoff. So let's keep it short. Let's keep it sweet. Let's keep it simple. Before we jump into our keys to the game, though, I do want to go over quickly. The Packers did get some early Christmas presents. Every single team that it would have been beneficial for the Packers to have lose lost. The Seahawks, the Lions, the Giants, the Commanders, every single one of them lost. So much so that it will actually keep open some slim scenarios that if the Packers lose to the Dolphins, they could still sneak in. Not likely, but the fact that they'd even still be alive in that scenario is crazy, and they needed some help, and they got it on Saturday. But more importantly, they legitimately now are so close to having their destiny in their hands. It's not exact yet, but easiest way is winning their 3 games, and then having Washington lose one of their final 2 games, which they play the Browns next week at noon. There's a possibility that the Packers beat the Dolphins in Miami, and then the Commanders would lose to the Browns at noon next week. That by the time the Packers kick off at 3:25 next week against the Vikings, they could hold their destiny in their hands, meaning beat the Vikings, beat the Lions, and you get in. So by kickoff next week, if 2 things go their way, meaning Packers win against the Dolphins, Commanders lose against the Browns, Green Bay will hold their destiny in their hands by the time they kick off next week. So certainly not a guarantee. The Commanders are currently favored in that game. The Dolphins are currently favored in this game. So if you feel confident about those 2 things, probably not the worst parlay in the world to hit up at the moment because, again, those 2 are currently underdogs. But, Green Bay is in so much of a better situation right now than they were just a couple weeks ago, and they're very, very close to holding their destiny in their hands. Again, win out, and you just need either the Commanders to lose one of the 2 games or the Giants to lose both of their games. So not out of the realm of possibility in any scenario. All right, so that does it for that. Let's get into the biggest thing that the Packers need to pretty much get in the playoffs, and that's a win. So let's go over the keys to this game. Like I said, I'm going to be quick today. I know it's Christmas. I know it's Packers game day, noon kickoff. So number 1, Uncle Mo. No, not the weird uncle at your table that's probably talking about the exact opposite politic conversations you want to be having. No, Uncle Mo is momentum. And what I mean by that is the Dolphins are 0-3 in their last 3 games. In the last 3 weeks, the Packers have not lost a game, 2 wins and a bye in that same time period. So momentum is going in the Packers' favor. Momentum has not been in the Dolphins' side of things. And, in the meantime, I do think there's a benefit to the Packers sitting back and watching all these teams that they need to have lose. Like, you do start feeling a little bit of like, okay, maybe we can do this. Like, imagine how much more difficult this game would be to get up for if the Commanders won and the Giants won and the Lions won and the Seahawks won and all these things are just kind of going against you. And you're like, man, even if we win this game, like we're probably not going to get in the playoffs. But you start seeing you win against, the Chicago Bears. You finally get your bye week. You win again last week. And then you see all these teams that you need to lose start losing. You start getting a little boost of confidence. Meanwhile, if you're Miami, whereas everything was once going your way and you look like a legitimate Super Bowl contender, now you've lost 3 in a row and you're legitimately questioning like, hey, are we still good enough? And this starts feeling like a must-win game for Miami. Whereas if all of a sudden they get behind, now all the pressure shifts over to the Dolphins in that scenario. So Uncle Mo, I believe in momentum. I do think it's real, and hopefully Green Bay can keep that going in this game. Number 2, it goes without saying, it's the low-hanging fruit in this game, but the Dolphins' speed on offense, and primarily at wide receiver in Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but Raheem Mostert, he who should not be named if you are a Packer fan because he just always seems to tear up the Packers. Those 3 guys are just 3 of the fastest human beings in the entire sport of football, and Green Bay is going to have to find a way to slow down this extremely fast Dolphins offense. Now, much easier said than done. And as I talked about with Mike Wall the other day, you sort of have a double-edged sword if you're a defensive coordinator because you play off coverage and one of those quick passes to Waddle or Hill can still go 80 yards because they can take it, make one guy miss. We know the Packers have struggled with tackling all year long, especially in the secondary. They make one guy miss, they take, or a safety takes a wrong angle and they are just gone immediately. And that's a problem. On the flip side, you come and play up and pressure these wide receivers a little bit more. And what happens? They can run right by you. And all of a sudden you get caught in, with 4 verticals and your safeties are like, what do we do? And all of a sudden they're taking the top off the defense and Tua has a wide open throw down the field. So you get caught in a little bit of a double-edged sword, and there's things that you can do to take away one of those two if you have like one super speedy, really good wide receiver, but man, does it make it so incredibly hard when you have 2 of them and both of them can do the same things. Tyreek, clearly the better of the 2, but man, Waddle is a cheat code in and of himself as well. So those 2, you got to figure out a way to slow them down. And then, like I said, Mostert's no, gimme in the backfield either. I think the big here is going to be the communication in the secondary, something that the Packers have struggled with all season long. I do think this defense is probably going to have to play a heavy dose of zone coverage. I don't think you want to go press man-to-man against, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle all game. I think that's probably a recipe for disaster. So the communication on the back end is going to be huge, and they cannot flub that. They can't screw it up. It's going to be a real key to this game. And then hand in hand with that is number 3, and that's pressuring Tua, which is so hard without Rashawn Gary. This Dolphins O-line, not that good. They're okay. And I think, we'll see what Teron, Armstead can do. He's questionable, if I remember correctly. Last I looked at the injury report, I'm assuming he's going to play. But either way, he has not been great this season. And this Dolphins offensive line is a bit susceptible and you can get pressure on Tua. But it's so just insanely important that you do get the pressure on him, because we know he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but he can be deadly accurate. And if you give him time in the pocket with those receivers to just, step up and, eye the field, see the field, and let him throw with anticipation and accuracy, he's just going to murder you. Like, it is going to be an extremely, extremely long day at the office. So you've got to find a way to get pressure on him. If you can, that's when you can see a couple of those Tua ducks come flying out, and maybe you get your hand on a tip pass or pick off a pass here or there. And then that can change the game. Or maybe you get a sack fumble. All of those things are within the realm of possibility. So the offensive line for the Dolphins, a bit susceptible. But if you're the Packers, you got to find a way to take advantage of that, because again, if you can't get there with 4, you're going to have to start bringing pressure. You start bringing pressure, then all of a sudden you get Waddle or Tyreek and one-on-ones. Like, you just start having to pick your poison, and that is the worst place that you can be in for a defensive coordinator. So super important that the Packers find a way to get pressure, and specifically get pressure with their front 4. Number 4, I'm looking at a key matchup up front, and that's Kenny Clark versus Connor Williams. Connor Williams, a big free agent signing. Remember, he had his rookie stint, carrying out through his rookie contract with the Dallas Cowboys. Was kind of a bust in Dallas, never really worked out. The Dolphins bring him in, they move him to center, and he's been really, really good at center. He kind of found his long-term home along the offensive line at that spot, and it's completely turned his career around. And I've said forever and always, and will probably continue to say it as long as he's a Green Bay Packer, this Packers defense goes as Kenny Clark goes. If Kenny Clark can dominate up front, it makes everyone's job easier, and it gives you a puncher's chance to win on defense, even without Rashawn Gary, even without some of your other defenders playing as well as they have in previous seasons. When Kenny's good, your defense is usually good. He's got a very tough matchup with Connor Williams this week. If Kenny can win that matchup with Connor Williams, that takes away one of the Dolphins' better players on that offensive line and gives the Green Bay Packers a real advantage, because that defense plays better when he plays well. If Connor Williams can win that matchup and Kenny can't do anything in the interior of that defense, it could be, like I said, a very long day at the office, because Tua will have time, Mostert will have running room, and that is just not going to be good enough to beat a Dolphins team in Miami on Christmas Day. So you want a matchup to watch early, Kenny Clark versus Connor Williams. Number 5 on my list, eat your vegetables on defense. I've said it a million times over, but this is a Dolphins offense that averages 5 yards per carry. I take that back. The Packers defense allows 5 yards per carry, and Raheem Mostert has been a consistent Packers killer. And more importantly, the Dolphins are really, really good when they can get their play action game going. And if you don't eat your vegetables on early downs and get Mostert down and, kind of take away the threat of that play action pass, like I said, those wide receivers are going to beat you deep, and you're in a constant situation of basically having to guess. Are we going to send our guys up and leave us susceptible on the back end, or are we going to keep our guys back and Mostert's just going to eat us alive? You've got to eat your vegetables on early downs. Your guys have got to get off of blocks and go make tackles and be there and run support, because if Mostert gets going and all of a sudden you have to commit more guys to the running game and now less players to Waddle and Hill on the outside, this Dolphins team just has, options to beat you on offense. And like I said, it really starts with eating your vegetables on early downs, making the stops where you need to, getting the Dolphins in 3rd and long. You can get them in 3rd and long. You can open up your pressure packages. You get pressure on Tua. You've got a puncher's chance to win and really keep that offense in, under wraps a little bit. So it starts with those early downs and getting the Dolphins into 3rd and long situations. On the flip side, I mentioned that the Packers have been allowing 5.0 yards or 5 yards per carry. On offense, this is a Dolphins defense that is allowing 4.4 yards per carry. So not quite as bad as the Packers run defense, but that's a decent chunk that you can get on them on a per play basis. And now in comes A.J. Dillon playing his best football of the season, and Aaron Jones, who's again been the Packers' most consistent playmaker through the course of this season. So if those guys can get going on offense, that's going to set up your play action game, is going to set up Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, hopefully for some explosive plays down the field. But more importantly, you can keep that Dolphins offense and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert off the field and give your offense, more opportunities and hopefully some opportunities to strike down the field as well. So I think this is a game where Green Bay can really run the football. They've faced some good defenses as of late that can really shut you down and make it more difficult for you to run. I thought last week was a great example of that, but it's against the Rams. But this is a Dolphins team that's going to be easier to run against. And I do think, and I've made mention of this on numerous occasions in the past as well, but when you face a team that's really good at something like the Rams were against the run, and like every single yard is just such a grind, and then you go next week against a team that doesn't have that, like the field just looks so much more open to you. Like everything just seems easier when you're not going against that same level of competition. You had to grind out every single yard on the ground against the Rams. Now you go against the Dolphins, who aren't quite as stout up front, and it just feels like the weight of the world is off your shoulders and you're going to be able to take advantage of it. So I think this is a game where the Packers are going to be able to run the ball, and hopefully that 1-2 punch of Jones and Dillon is able to give the Dolphins all they can handle up front, which is set up play action and hopefully some explosive plays down the field. Number 7 is red zone efficiency. So let's say you're the Packers and you're going to decide, you know what, we're not going to let Tyreek Hill and we're not going to let Jalen Waddle beat us deep. They're going to have to go the length of the field. We're going to play some bend but don't break. I think the Packers, as I just mentioned, I think they're going to be able to run the football, and I think they're going to be able to hit some explosives on their own as well. I think this is going to be a game where both of these teams move the football down the field, and I think it ultimately could, come down to red zone efficiency. If you have one team that goes, 1 for 4 in the red zone and has to kick a bunch of field goals, that team's going to lose. If you have another team that goes, 3 for 4, 4 for 5, whatever it is, and, gets touchdowns instead of having to settle for field goals, that team's probably going to win. So watch for a lot of yards in this game. Watch for both teams being able to move the ball up and down the field. But the team that actually is able to punch it in, something that Green Bay struggled with offensively through the course of this season, that team is probably going to win this game. So we can always do the low-hanging fruit, explosive plays, red zone efficiency, third down conversions, turnovers, all those things. But in this one, if I had to pick one, I'm going red zone efficiency. Number 8, let's just block like hell for Keyshawn Nixon, because he has been fun as hell, and I could not be more excited to, every time he has the opportunity to touch the ball. He looks like one of the best returners in the game, and he has been one of the best returners in the game, and he can be a legitimate game changer, easy for me to say, as he has shown over these past few weeks, and just setting the Packers offense up in some plus situations to hopefully get some points where you don't have to go 15 plays, 80 yards to go down and score a touchdown. If Keyshawn Nixon can get some explosives either as a punt returner or as a kick returner, that's going to set up this offense and hopefully allow them to get touchdowns without having to go the full length of the field. Number 9, one of my big takeaways, from the Rams game this past week was just how well the rookies played. And you're talking about key players, Zach Tom, JJ Enagbare, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Quay Walker, probably a smattering of Devontae Wyatt. Maybe we see a little bit of Samori Toure. Seriously going to see some of these guys on special teams as well. We don't want to just limit it to offense and defense, but Tariq Carpenter, those guys are going to be seen on special teams as well. This rookie class has been playing really, really well. As I mentioned, anytime you have to play 5, 6, 7 rookies, meaningful snaps, that's a recipe for disaster. Instead, for the Packers, it has been a recipe for success. Those are some of the guys that are carrying this team right now, especially when you look at Doubs and Watson at wide receiver, Quay at inside linebacker, Enagbare at edge. Those are some key premium positions. Those guys have been, Zach Tom at left tackle. Key players at key premium positions. Those guys have been holding their own. Is there a rookie wall? Can those guys continue to push through? I think they can. It's not like those guys have played a ton of snaps. And Igbari didn't start the season. Outside of Quay Walker, like he's the only one that's played a ton of snaps, right? Wyatt's been a rotational guy. Zach Tom's been on the bench the majority of the year. Watson started the year on injured and has had stints on the injured list. Romeo Doubs just came back from injury. So all those guys should still have their legs under them. And I really look for that rookie class to continue to impress. And they're going to need to if Green Bay wants to win this game against the Dolphins. And then last but not least, number 10, Aaron Rodgers played solid football this season, but he's been nowhere near the MVP caliber quarterback that we saw over the course of the last 2 seasons. Aaron always has some late season magic in him, whether it's a run the table or whatever it is, to get this team over the hump. I don't think these last few games, if you go up to Chicago and the Rams and things like that, I don't think this has been a run the table scenario where, in that year, Aaron just literally put the entire franchise on his back and said, guys, I got this. I'm going to get you to the NFC Championship just because I'm Aaron freaking Rodgers. That was that season. I haven't seen that this season. Now you're in a spot where you're Aaron Rodgers. You've won 4 MVPs back-to-back the last 2 years, and you've got 3 games left. On the road against Miami, at home against Minnesota, at home against Detroit. And if you win those 3 games, you probably get in the playoffs. You're Aaron freaking Rodgers. For 3 games, we need to start seeing MVP level Aaron once again. I think that capability is out there. The offensive line has been much better. The wide receivers have been much better. You've got a legitimate running game. Go out and play your MVP brand of football that we know you're capable of, that we haven't seen a lot of this season. Season's now on the line, 3 games left. You have really tough opponent this week in the Dolphins in Miami. Go out, put this team on your shoulders, be the MVP, be the guy that they paid to bring back, show why you are still the guy in the NFL. You have the ability to do it. We need to see some MVP Aaron Rodgers these last few weeks. Final thought, this is how real I am with you guys. It's Christmas Day. And it never behooves anyone in these shows to pick against the Packers because they'll always remember if you pick against the Packers and they'll never remember if you picked for it. Predictions are dumb anyway. If I knew what was going to happen, I would be in Vegas betting every week and not be doing podcasts. But I like the Dolphins in this one. Hope I'm wrong. I sincerely hope I'm wrong. Hopefully we get a Christmas Day win and the Packers playoff hopes stay alive. But I'm going to say Dolphins 23. Dolphins 27, Packers 23. Like I said, that just shows how real I'm always going to be with you guys. It gives me nothing to pick against the Packers. Just people will get frustrated with it no matter what. And it would just be so much easier for me to say Packers 27, Dolphins 23. But I'm always going to tell you guys the truth, what's on my mind, what I'm thinking. So I'm going to say Dolphins 27, Packers 23, and just hope like heck that I'm wrong. Merry Christmas to you all for those who celebrate. Happy holidays. I'll be right back here tomorrow for you guys breaking down the game. Can't wait to do it. Hopefully we're talking about a Packers victory Monday. But until next time, and as always, enjoy the game and go Pack Go.